Isabel.
Hi, Maureen.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. I think we put a bunch of what's the word? We have functions on this session because we had an incident with the Zoom bombing earlier in the week. So I've made you co-host so that you can put your screen on, but the students were not allowing them to put their screen, like their video on during the session. So I just want to make sure you're able to do that. Does your video work if you click the video button? Oh, perfect. Okay, good. Thanks for joining us.
No, of course. I missed what you said. I think you cut off a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Multiple functions.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so we had a Zoom bombing on earlier in the week, Monday, our first session. So, we've never had that before. So we weren't expecting it. So we put a lot of measures in place so that nobody can put their video on except if you're a co-host. So I made you a co-host.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can screen share except for a co-host.
Okay.
So you should be all set, but just so you know, the students will not be able to put their cameras on. I'm just going to admit our graduate assistant, Andrew, is on this call. He's going to monitor. So basically we set up the waiting room. So as people come in, Andrew's going to verify they're a student and then let them in. So if you see that popping up on your screen about the waiting room, you'll understand why there might be a delay with some people. If they don't put their last name, we're asking them to put the last name before we'll let them in. So just so you understand, because I think it'll be popping up on your screen as well, since you're a co-host with regards to the waiting room. So
yes, of course.
I don't know. Has that ever happened to you? The Zoom
It has never happened. So did someone just randomly come in and?
Yes. So I'm not sure if it was a bot or how that works, but first it was an old man in his video was on and he's waving to us. And so it looked like I was confused. I was thinking, is this like a non-traditional student, like an older man, or is it a faculty member who maybe he's just not as familiar with how this works? And because he was going like this, I didn't know if he had a question. It was just so confusing. So my colleague, Shannon Hargrove, who has a class right now, so she wasn't able to be with us, but she was in control. She was the host. So I had texted her, can you please turn the video off on this guy? So she did, but then I guess that prompted him or the bot, or I don't know, to take over our screen and then put up the pornography.
Oh my goodness.
It was terrible. So I left that day with a headache because I was like stressed the entire rest of, because we've had several sessions every day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, just so you're aware why you're not going to be able to see the students' pictures. They can't turn their videos on, and but we are going to allow them to jump in. We haven't had any issues since that, and really we probably could let them put the videos on because we are checking that they're students, but I guess if it doesn't bother you, we're just going to leave them off just again to be safe.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I mean, I have a deck to present, the same deck I presented earlier, so I can't see anyone's face anyway while I'm presenting. So it's totally fine.
Okay. All right, good. So, just so you know, the way I was going to do this is I'll first just welcome everybody. I'm going to go through like the housekeeping and mute their microphones that we're going to be recording the session. Is that still okay for you if we record? Okay. Because there are going to be students who have classes now and weren't able to make it. So we want to be able to share the video with them. And then we'll throw it out I'll mention to them that we're doing Q&A at the end. And then I'll introduce you, and I have you down as the AVP for Diversity Talent Acquisition. Is that the correct way to
Yes.
say it? Okay.
Yes.
So once I do introduce you, you can take it over and, you know, put up your deck, whatever you decide you want to do. And then at the end, if you want to just throw it out to Q&A, I'm going to tell them put things in the chat if they want. I can jump in and read the questions, or I'm going to tell them they can unmute their microphone if they just want to jump in with the question. Does
Okay.
that sound okay?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that works. So truth be told, I probably just like the presentation aspect more of these sessions than I do the Q&A. So I hope to kind of run through what I have, and then we can do the Q&A preferably pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a half-hour session.
Okay.
So we
I'll try
haven't
not
been,
too much.
yeah, I wouldn't stress over that, because I think a lot of students sometimes are apprehensive on these things to ask questions, especially
Okay.
because it's being recorded, or I'm not sure why, but we get sometimes a couple questions, but nothing crazy.
Mhm.
So one of the things I was going to ask you about, if there were no questions, so I'll throw it out there now in case it's not something that you're involved in, but I was on the website and I noticed the Insight program pre-internship. I was curious when I clicked into it, it was a blank page. So I was going to ask you if you knew what that was, what was involved in that.
Yeah, I actually think that's an undergrad initiative, but now that you mention it, I was on the site this morning and I saw a lot of our programs online with also blank pages. I know that we're gearing up to host a few events primarily for undergrad students, but that's probably phase one of getting these programs launched, is just getting them on the site and then working out the details. So I don't have too much insight there, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was also curious, there was the apprenticeship. So I didn't know if that's something that was in your wheelhouse that you're involved in, or.
That is not in my wheelhouse. I believe that's for our tech program, I believe. And that is a partnership with 2 schools in North Carolina. So it's a very specific track.
Okay. So I won't get into those. Okay. So we have 2 minutes. I am going to start promptly at 11:30 out of respect for your schedule, and just because we also have classes. So I do see some of the faculty have joined and they have their classes attending. So it's nice when they have the time in their schedule. I know a lot of the faculty they have a lot to cover for coursework, but it's great that some of them are able to kind of carve this in for us. So, okay, Managerial Economics.
Hello.
Thanks, Megan. So Megan Mehall is one of our faculty who definitely has been very supportive of this program, bringing her classes and all that. So thanks, Megan. So yeah, that sounds good. So do you want to just make sure you're able to share your screen before we get started? Perfect. Awesome. Okay, good. I just, with all these different parameters in place, I want to make sure it's not a problem.
Yes,
all right.
I totally understand.
Good. Okay, well, so we're at the 11:30 mark. So I'm going to get started. I want to welcome everybody to our Stack Your Future Career Week Bank of America session. We're really excited to have Isabel Chopnes. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Chopnes,
sorry, with us today. And I'll be introducing her again in a moment. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all, please keep your microphones muted. And we will be recording this session. And at the end, so if you could keep your questions, either throw them up in the chat, we'll answer them at the end, or you'll also have the opportunity to unmute your mic if you have a question at the end. But without further ado, I'd like to again introduce you to Ms. Isabel Chopnes, and she is the AVP of Diversity and Talent Acquisition. So I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Maureen. Really happy to be here. Hi, everyone. As she just mentioned, I am an AVP here at Bank of America in our Diversity and Inclusion Talent Acquisition Campus team, which is quite the mouthful. But just a little background about me before I begin the presentation piece. I have been at the bank for about 4.5 years now. I think that's right. And I actually started out straight from undergrad. I came through one of our rotational programs in global risk. And of course, I am not in risk right now, but I think that's just a testament to the internal mobility that we have at Bank of America. And it's really one of our pride and joy at the bank. So if anyone has questions on that, please feel free to ask me. And without further ado, I will begin by sharing my screen. Minimize that. All right, so for today, we have already begun with opening remarks. I hope to kind of give you an intro to Bank of America and who we are as a firm, and then talk a little bit about the application process. Now, I didn't go into too many details with the slides here, so I hope that you all have questions and you can feel free to ask me and we can have a conversation through that when we have the Q&A portion towards the end. So, intro to Bank of America. I would be completely remiss if I did not start off by using this slide. So what would you like the power to do is kind of the bread and butter or the catchphrase, if you will, of Bank of America. I don't know if you've seen any of our marketing billboards or commercials, but this question is always there, and it's at the forefront of our minds. It's how we start pretty much every town hall, and it's really the driver in what we do. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see that we have 66 million clients. I think the stat is 1 in 3 households has a Bank of America customer. We have 2.5 trillion in client assets. We are number 1 in client deposits, and we have 200,000 teammates globally. So what does all that mean besides we are a giant firm? Well, that means that we have a variety of financial services offerings or non-financial services offerings as well. And we care a lot about the well-being and the impact that we have in the communities that we serve. We care a lot and invest a lot in our teammates. And as you can see on the slide, we come from all walks of life, which touches on the diversity aspect that I'll talk about later on. We are definitely proud of who we are, both internally and externally, and what we do. So with that, what are some questions that we think about as we're doing what we do? So of course we have the large banking aspect, but that is not all we do. We're not all spreadsheets all the time. So even from banking to our strategy functions, we're always asking, how can we make the financial lives of our clients and the communities that we serve in better? So how do we ensure equal access to opportunity? I'll mention this later, but we have a number of partnerships with in our D&I space with local organizations and nonprofits. We are doing a lot in the low carbon and clean energy space. In fact, we actually just kind of created this climate risk function in our bank because, again, it's not just a buzz term, it's something that we care a lot about. We care about technology advancements, both socially and internally, making sure that we are doing everything we can. We have all the necessary tools that we need to service our clients. And we care a lot about charity and giving and employment practices. So our philanthropy is massive, and it kind of touches on every aspect of the bank. So from an enterprise standpoint, we do have a dedicated team who focuses on our philanthropy, our foundations, donations, that sort of thing. But also at the individual teammate level, we highly encourage volunteering. We have a match program. So I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's something like if you donate a certain amount of hours or if you donate a certain amount of money, then the bank will match that. So again, we care a lot about our employees giving back to the communities that we serve. Now, while I talk about our employees, yes, we do give back, but we also want to make sure that our teammates are representative of the world around us. And in one word, that means diversity. So what does our workforce look like? And how does that make us better at what we do? So if you look at the slide, you'll see that over 50% of our management team is diverse. You know, over 45% of our management team are women. And my favorite fact on this slide is that we are one of only 4 S&P 100 companies with 6 or more women on the board. So we value diversity at every level. And when I say diversity, I don't just mean gender diversity or ethnic diversity, but also those who are differently abled, neurodiversity. We want to make sure that we are totally encompassing, again, the world that we live in now, but we want to make sure that our workforce is just as representative of that as the world we live in. So I always say that this slide is great and the numbers are impressive, but there's always more work to be done. And that is a lot of what my job is as a diversity campus recruiter is, but we also have, again, dedicated teams who are focused on making sure that our workforce is, you know, as diverse and inclusive, which is equally as important as we can. So what do some of these teams do? So we have at the bank 11 employee networks that are designated for different affinity groups. So for example, I myself am a member of BPG, our Black professional group, LEAD, which is our women's network. I'm also in OLA, which is for Hispanic and Latinos at the bank. And then we have so many more for Asian leaders, for Native Americans, for military vets or their family members. And of course, you don't have to identify as any of these groups to participate. You can be an ally, or you can just be interested in learning more. And what these employee networks do is provide a microcosm within Bank of America to learn about different areas of the bank, because this is an enterprise and global function. So, you know, while I am in BPG, there are many people who are in BPG who work in the financial centers, for example, some areas that I'm not exposed to in my day-to-day. So they offer that, as well as leadership development opportunities. I have a friend who personally started off with me in my intern class, and she is now, you know, working with a lot of the chapter leads in Charlotte in our headquarters location on so many of the initiatives that BPG is running, and a lot of the really national programs that are run. And that's an incredible exposure opportunity for someone who started off as an intern. So these offer that as well. And last but certainly not least, you know, what are we doing in our communities? So of course, throughout the pandemic, we have seen a lot happen. And what I really like about Bank of America is that it's not just a sit and react. So internally, we hosted a lot of tough dialogues that we call courageous conversations about things that were happening in the news. But it didn't stop there, and it extended to, okay, well, what can we do as a firm that really demonstrates, you know, how much we care and how much impact we can drive? Because as a global financial services firm, we have the opportunity to do so. And on the slide, you'll see a bunch of different things. So you'll see, you know, committed $100 million to meet critical needs caused by coronavirus. You'll see our partnership our partnership with the NAACP, UNCF, and NUL. But my favorite tidbit is the $1.2 billion 4-year initiative, which actually started off as $1 billion, but over time we've decided to expand it to $1.25 billion to drive economic opportunity, healthcare initiatives, and racial equality. So the way that impacts me as a recruiter is some of that 1.25 billion goes to scholarships. So we were able to start a lot of scholarship programs this year with our D&I partners. So offering, you know, HBCU students scholarships, for example, or other local organizations. And that's something that I'm personally passionate about and excited that I can do that every day. But again, we want to make sure that we are doing good in the communities that we serve. So last but not least, I kind of want to close out this section with, okay, now we know what Bank of America does and how they do what they do, but what does Bank of America actually look like? What are the offerings? What are the lines of business? So here you'll see that we have 3 different pillars, which is our umbrella way, I guess, of organizing the many, many different programs that we have. So enterprise-wide, I think we have over 40 internship programs encompassing everyone from, the freshman level to master's and PhD students. So these pillars are, technology and operations on the one hand. So broken out, we have global technology and global operations. Technology can be anything from coding, from working on our Erica app, to natural language processing, to other things that I am not so qualified to talk about, but someone in technology will be happy to go into details about everything that they do. Our operations team touches literally every aspect of the bank. They are kind of what keeps everything going. And then we have our banking and markets division, which is more of the bread and butter financial services across the board. But this is where you'll see our markets facing or client facing programs. So consumer and small business banking, we have global markets, investment banking, wealth management. And then towards the right, we have our business support functions, or as we call them, our corporate functions. So this is the group that essentially keeps the lights on. We have the chief financial officer group. We have global risk, which again is how I started off my career at Bank of America. We have marketing, legal, human resources, where I sit now, our CAO, Chief Administrative Officer, and strategy group, which drives a lot of the strategy and what the general direction is for a lot of our businesses. So we have programs across the enterprise touching all of these spaces. And we are currently just kicking off our MBA season. So a lot of the programs have just begun the hiring stages. So what does the application process look like? So in a quick snapshot, we usually begin by offering presentations like these, corporate presentations, which gives potential candidates a glimpse into what Bank of America is and the services that we offer. The next step, which I hope all of you do, is go to our careers webpage and look at the different programs that are hiring right now and submit an application. Following that, we have the hire view interviews, which I know a lot of people aren't totally fans of, but they are pre-recorded first round interviews, largely behavioral in nature. And then following that, we have our final round super day, which is the more traditional, like let's say 3 or so interviews in a day. And then successful candidates will then hopefully eventually receive an offer from the internship programs. So again, I really hope that you visit the campus career site, which is linked below, campus.bankofamerica.com, and read through the job descriptions. I always advise people to do that before they submit an application. It sounds very simple, but a lot of people miss it. So read through the job descriptions, kind of figure out what your fit is at the bank, and submit an application. So we have an application limit of 3, unless you are applying to our international programs, then we up the limit to 5. But once you do that, definitely be sure to follow up with a recruiter and just say, hi, I'm really interested in this program. I just submitted my application, would like to connect with you further. You can do that through LinkedIn. You can do that through your personal email, whichever, but it's definitely an important part of the application process. It's part of the networking aspect that many underestimate, but just as important as submitting your application in the first place. So with that, again, please be on the lookout for all of the 2022 applications, and be sure to Google, our human capital report, which digs into a lot of the diversity and inclusion aspects and initiatives that we have going on at the bank. And then of course, visit campus.bankofamerica.com. And that is all I have. I definitely spoke quite a bit there, but Yeah, that's is what I have prepared. So we'll pass it back to you, Maureen.
Okay, great. So at this point, if anybody would like to either unmute their mic or put something in the chat, you can go ahead and do that, and I will make sure to read it out to Isabel. I'll just give it a moment. One thing that I know you and I think talked about already, but we do have a good number of international students here at the college. So I think what you had said is you do consider them for these internship opportunities. Can you hear that, Isabel? Did I cut out? Can you hear me?
I missed probably all of that.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I think you and I talked about this last time we spoke, but we do have a good number of international students. And I was just curious if you have opportunities for internships for our international students. And I'm thinking.
I think I lost you again.
Yes, it looked like it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on. Can you, if I put the question in the chat, would that be easier? Can you read
Can
the
I
chat?
enter in the chat?
Well, I was gonna say I could throw this in the chat if that's easier for you to see what I'm saying. The question. Oh, can you hear me now?
Okay, I think I have you back.
Okay, good. So international students, in terms of internships, I think you had mentioned that you do consider international students at Bank of America for internship. And also, I'm curious, entry-level opportunities as well?
Yes, we do. Our sponsorship opportunities are primarily within our global banking and markets division with the bank, but across the board, we do consider international applicants.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have a lot of bright international students here that, you know, they're often looking. So the other question I had, so you had mentioned, I don't know if you look like you might be freezing, but there we go. You mentioned freshmen, you had opportunities for freshmen. Are the opportunities for freshmen internships for the summer?
Yes, I think you cut off just a bit, but our freshman opportunities. Yeah, so those are going to be more of our program where you don't have too clear of an idea of what it is that you want to do. So we offer programs primarily in our technology and I believe within our corporate functions, just for freshmen, hopefully pipelining for our sophomore and junior year internships and eventually working into full-time. But again, as I mentioned before, we're really big on internal mobility. So, you know, it's not uncommon for us to have a freshman in banking and markets. Don't think it's for me. I want to do something more tech focused. Can we work on getting me into a technology sophomore program? So we do that all the time as well. But yeah, we do have opportunities for underclassmen.
Okay. So that's great. I wasn't sure. I know sometimes there are like leadership programs for freshmen, like a 3-day program. Do you ever do anything along those lines as well, or at Bank of America?
You cut out just a bit. So you asked for about leadership development programs?
Yeah, sometimes I've seen other companies sometimes have like a 3-day program for a freshman in the summer, like a rising sophomore, or even, you know, rising juniors. Is that something that you've ever been involved with or they've thought about?
Yes. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge about them, so I can only speak to them high level. But we do have like early insights or our Launchpad series or our DNI forums where it's a shortened session. So it's either or 2 days where we focus on, okay, here are all the areas in the bank. Maybe we offer, interview tips or networking tips or things of that sort, and hopefully kind of pass these candidates along through our application process and ultimately interview. So a lot of them do actually culminate with an advanced or accelerated interview process. So I always recommend that people apply to those as well.
And when is the best time to apply to those? Are the deadlines for those early?
Yes. As soon as you see the application hit the Bank of America site is the best time to apply, because all of our programs hire on. And while we can say, we want to hire for the next 4 months, maybe we meet so many great candidates in month 2 that all of our spots are filled up. So you always want to apply as early as possible.
Okay. Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of early deadlines in general for the internships and the programs for the summer, which is something we've been saying to our students, like, you need to be checking now and applying now for this summer 2022.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because we have, a 3 application limit. Even if you're just a little bit interested and you don't have concrete feelings of, yes, I definitely want to do this, submit an application anyway.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet. But while we're waiting, one of the questions I had for you was in terms of resumes. So when you receive a resume, are there any things that you can share with our students that are impressive to you, or you look for, or beware of, things that they should be thinking about?
Definitely. So I'll say right off the bat that I'm going to feel very old when I say this, but these students going through college now are far more impressive than I ever was or ever could be. And so it's very hard to say, oh, this resume stands out, because so many people are doing so many incredible things. So I can speak more to things to watch out for, because I feel like, again, with such a competitive pool, that's probably more what we're looking at. And I would say, one, definitely keep your resume to 1 page, but impactful with your bullet points, making sure that you speak about yourself in as highly a light as you can. Resume is not just a summary of your job description. What I like to say, it's a sheet, right? So if you, were a waitress, for example, well, that's very large in, client interactions, which is huge for our wealth management or investment banking businesses. Team or you manager of the restaurant, like there are so many different ways to highlight any type of experience that you had, and that to me is the most impactful thing, because we want to know what you got out of that experience and how that can be valuable for us and our team and our firm overall.
Sorry, you froze for a second there, but we did hear what you said. Yeah, I often tell the students to think about the transferable bullets where they're highlighting the teamwork, leadership, problem solving, all that, versus stating the obvious.
Exactly.
And then also, I'm curious of your thoughts on LinkedIn. Is that something that you look at?
As in, do we look at students' LinkedIn profiles? Something that I'm investing too much time in, just because we receive thousands of resumes and we have to get all of them. So it's a little tiring. However, I would say don't underestimate it's a social network, but that's a definite great way to be connected to recruiters like myself, or to associates or teammates that we have who work in the areas that you're interested in. And I don't think I've ever heard of anyone turning down like a cold call or a message from LinkedIn. A lot of people who come across on my desk, I've been referred to by business reps who said, hey, this kid just messaged me on LinkedIn, talk to them for 15 minutes. They seem great. Take a look at their application. And it's really just as simple as that. So we don't really look at candidates' LinkedIn profiles, but we do respond when people reach out to us through LinkedIn.
Okay, that's great to hear. Yeah, we frequently tell them, get the resume done first and then get that LinkedIn profile up to speed. So,
Yes.
okay, yeah, that's good to hear. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but I just had one other thought, and I would love to hear your perspective. With regards to the interview, anything they should be aware of, things that you've seen that you would automatically rule the candidate out because of that, whatever they did or said during the interview, whether it's, having a crazy background or interruptions, or I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and tips for that.
Yeah, so I think you cut out just a bit. You mean any interview or the hire view specifically, or Super Day, just?
Well, actually, as you say that, the higher view, we're not as familiar with that. So I'd be curious what they can expect with that.
Yeah. So I will answer both at the same time. So the higher view interview, as I mentioned during the presentation, is kind of in lieu of the first interview. It's pretty much exactly the same. They're behavioral, tell me about yourself, tell me about a time when questions. It's just that they are pre-recorded. And I think that fact alone freaks a lot of people. However, I imagine it as close to a first round interview as you can, because there is going to be eventually someone on the other side responses by any sort of system, human watching these. And so we understand the nervous factor. However, just as you would say, just as you would answer, tell me about yourself, or why are you interested in Bank of America in a live interview in person, exact answers on your pre-recorded interview. So with that, I say definitely practice, maybe recite your answer to yourself a few times, look in the mirror and do it. Please don't have a script up while you are interviewing, because it is very obvious on the higher view. And that's certainly maybe not a red flag, but an orange flag, let's say, while we're watching it, because we're watching your eyes move and it's a little distracting while we're trying to evaluate your answers. So the higher view just will come out, you will be fine. For the rest of the interview, so a Super Day, for example, I think they feel a little more intense than they have to be. There are 3 back-to-back interviews, yes, and it's nerve-wracking to have so many interviews in such a short time. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is get to know you as a candidate, get to know you as a person and a potential teammate. So no one is trying to give you the wrong answer. I've heard of interviewers even coaching interviewees to get to the right answer eventually for our investment banking interviews sometimes. So we really don't want you to mess up. We want you to do great. We want to hire you. So going into any interview with that mindset will probably ease your nerves a little bit and have it a little more free flowing, which should lead to a great conversation, which is the interview is in general.
Absolutely. I think students sometimes forget that it's a two-way street. It's meant to be a conversation, and it's great for them to even ask questions at the end. In fact, I would caution them never to not ask questions at the end. But yeah, that's a great tip to share with them, because I know the nerves are there when they enter, as for anybody in an interview. So,
Yeah.
So I'm not seeing any questions. I will pause for just another couple of seconds. If anybody has a question, now's your chance. Yep, I'm not seeing it. So, okay, I am going to say thank you so much, Isabel, for participating in this week's program. The information you shared was wonderful, and it's great too that we have it recorded so that we can share it. And any students interested who would like to watch that back, please just reach out to me. Thanks again, Isabel. We'll definitely keep in touch. Yes. And have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed it. You have a great weekend as well.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.